welcome back. Madden 17 commentary. Do me a favor, take a moment, hit the like button, subscribe button, leave your criticism in the comment section. As always, run over to Twitter. My username is Shutdown Safety. If you missed part one of this interview, I will put a link down in the description so you can get caught up to speed. But now, continuing along my conversation with Rex Dickson on Madden 17.
As you build on this game, and you spoke about before, continuing to develop and outlay plans and goals, does it become harder to market to the casual crowd, especially when we talk about things like ball physics, defensive adjustments? Those are things that the sim community has kind of clamored for. Do you think it hinders a casual-friendly game to have to put in some of these things that we specifically come to you guys and say, listen, we want this in the game?
I don't know if it hinders. If you use the strategy that I use internally, which is if you capture your core and if your core is happy, then casuals will start adding on and mass markets will come because that's what their friends are playing. If you see some other games, even like your Call of Duties or your Destinies, they're very core focused. They build from their core out instead of trying to take shots at pulling in casuals by building features that are not targeted at core but are targeted at a mass market audience. And we're starting to learn, and it's a learning process for us because there are a lot of people in marketing and a lot of people on executive staff here who feel like the cores are going to buy the game every year no matter what. Like we already got them in our back pocket. So, spending money to bring someone back in who's already going to buy the game doesn't make a lot of sense from that perspective. But I think the industry is changing, and as you look at these more sort of subscription-based games that become more like yearly lifestyles for people versus just something you play for 30 hours and put down, it's a changing game. And we believe, Clint and I specifically have been champions of this, that the more you cater to your core, the more you win over your core, the more the narrative comes about like a positive narrative by the people who play the game will then pull the casuals in versus trying to build features specifically that cater to casuals at the expense of what the core wants. I think this year we've been more successful than ever in driving that agenda. We've still got some room to improve there, but hopefully it works out. The fear this time is Madden 17 is so core and so sim that it's harder and that people are going to take more losses and that won't be as fun for people, and that the time that you have to put in to kind of learn the game and adapt to the game is demanding enough that it might turn some people off. That's a real fear that a lot of people internally have. But the more the course validates this direction and says this is the game we want, we're going to see it through and see how it plays out. And if in turn this game scores well and sells well, and we already know it's a very core, authentic, sim-focused game, that will open up a lot of roads for me to continue to go down a simulation authenticity path, because we will have validated it with success in sales and marketing, and that's kind of what we're looking for this year.
You had kind of talked about, other games just briefly there. You yourself are a gamer. Some community questions revolved around if there was one feature out of any other game that you could take and bring that into Madden, what would that be?
I think it's pretty obvious right now. I think if you look at the competitive landscape in sports and you look at Madden, some of the things that are missing are like a story mode. And while not specifically that interesting to me and not where I would want to spend resources, I can't deny that at least 3/4 of the interviews that I have and people that I talk to will bring up, hey, when is Madden going to do a story mode? And since we're the only ones who can really deliver something in a football sense in that space, I think we have a responsibility to go after it at some point in the future. Another big one for me is team play. A lot of the core community, and especially now that competitive sports has dialed up, having a co-op way to play the game option or a competitive team play option is really important to me. And I think, Scott O'Gallagher and his team at NBA 2K do a great job with that My Park mode. And I would love to see something similar to that in Madden. And I think, moving forward, that's an expectation that sports titles have some element of team play to them, some aspect of cooperative play that's available. And it's a bit of a missing element in Madden right now that I think we need to go after. So it's stuff like that. It's nothing super, exciting or bleeding edge, or, I could go on a big tangent about how much I want to see VR. But I think the main things are really going after those things that Madden doesn't have that other sports games do. Things like team play, customization, game phase, all really obvious stuff, but it's stuff we definitely need to get into Madden.
I think when you talk about the story modes, you talk about a game that progresses and grows with you. One of the problems I think a lot of people have with Madden, and hopefully you'll agree, is the game begins to feel very repetitious, especially in your franchise mode and your season modes. Have you done anything this year with all the overlays, all the commentaries being redone to kind of prevent that stagnant, with just a single game after game after game feeling that people quickly get overwhelmed by? And I think it starts to hurt the replay value of the game when they ultimately all kind of start to run together and feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, specifically with commentary, you're going to see that be a big change this year. When you go from 40 hours in the recording booth to something like 400, you're definitely going to see a lot less repetition in the lines that you hear. But I think it's bigger than that. I think, when you think about like people who sit down and play Madden extensively, like, hundreds of hours into thousands of hours invested, there's some really little simple stuff like the inability to skip certain presentation flows in a MUT solo challenge, for the amount of sort of front-end screen management you have to do in CFM week to week. A lot of that stuff has been cleaned up, optimized, made smoother. We call them friction points, and the more you sort of eliminate friction points, as small as they can be, you'd be amazed at how much that adds up to a much more engaging, less grindy of an experience. And I feel like we've accomplished that in a lot of different modes this year in MUT and CFM, even in just regular gameplay. Your ability to kind of get through things quicker and not be held up, it makes a big difference because you don't feel like the game is grindy anymore. You're actually engaged in all the things you're doing and don't feel like you're wasting time doing meaningless menial tasks. So that, it's been a big focus for us this year, and I think it's going to pay off.
All right, guys, in closing this out again, it's so critical that you guys do take a second to go over to Twitter. Thank Rex Dickson, Rex to EA Football. Let EA Sports know that you value what's on my channel. You obviously appreciate the time they take to come in and talk to me. The next video, we're going to talk about some things which, quite honestly, I don't think you're going to find a whole lot of other places. Magazines aren't going to be so ingrained in strictly Madden to answer things like this or ask things like this. We talk about Generation 3 physics, why they took so long to get out of Madden on Next Gen. Talk about how Frostbite has impacted other titles, how it's going to be brought into Madden, and if they're going to have to rebuild everything from the ground up. And of course, I'm going to have him elaborate a little bit on some things he stated earlier as why he is the most proud of Madden 17 over any other game. So look for that video next week. I appreciate you guys checking this out, and I'll be back shortly with more content.